grade level you're interested in teaching, just so we know a little bit about you? So maybe your first name, last name, and what grade level you're interested in teaching. And if you're not interested in teaching, that's okay as well. But we'd love to just learn a little bit more about you if you don't mind doing that in the chat. Nina, thanks for joining us, sixth grade. Kimberly, and Priscilla, looks like second and third grade. Priscilla, K through third. Kayla, thanks for joining, first through fourth grade. And Jocelyn, you're looking at sixth grade. Thanks for being here. Elizabeth, second grade to fifth grade. Janeth, K through second grade. And I think that's Ephraim, third grade. So all within the realm, the high school, this might not be exactly the right fit, but you can still consider Chapman. So still keep an eye on this the presentation, as there might be other opportunities for you at Chapman, but I'll go ahead and begin. So great to see you all. Welcome. Thanks for sharing that. So this again, sorry. This is about our transfer admissions, our CTAG agreement with Santiago Canyon to Chapman. So this is what we'll kind of go through. We'll give a little bit of an overview of the program, a program overview, and then I'll turn it over to Shannon again. She'll give some admissions requirements and kind of the process and timeline, and then we'll be here to answer any questions as well. So I'm hoping that I can get this to work. Let me know. Can you hear it?
CTAG stands for Chapman's Transfer Admission Guarantee. The CTAG offers an option and an opportunity for a seamless transfer experience into Chapman University and specifically into the Integrated Educational Studies program. Really, when I think about the importance of the CTAG for future educators, we're thinking about what's needed for the next generation of educators. We want our students, and especially the CTAG for future educator students, to be able to go out into the workforce after they finish their degrees and contribute to the community immediately without having the burden of debt.
One of the key values for the CTAG for Santa Ana College, I think it really brings together two institutions in Orange County that are deeply committed to higher education and opportunities for students.
Well, the value of the CTAG program for Santiago Canyon College is so our student population through the CTAG agreement is developing a real strong comfort level with the idea of going to Chapman University.
Well, I think what makes really Chapman special is the attention and the dedication that everybody here on campus has for the students. Faculty are incredibly accessible, the administrators are accessible. Everything we do, every decision we make is always based on the fundamental question, is this going to be good for the students?
The Integrated Educational Studies program prepares educators for the classroom as well as the community. And so we have a number of students who are heading into K-12 classroom teaching settings and working closely with individuals who are planning to head into other types of educational settings.
When I was getting ready to transfer from community college, I looked at all the local universities, and something that stood out about Chapman was the IES program specifically. When I took a look at the major requirements for IES, it didn't seem like your typical education major. That's one of the reasons why I decided to go ahead and pick Chapman.
Through the CTAG agreement, Chapman has been committed to multiple financial incentives for this cohort of students that are going to be coming from SCC and transferring to Chapman.
A good number of our students come to our college with the goal of becoming a teacher. And so I think what the CTAG provides, one is the guarantee. When students come to our college and are not really sure what their options are after Santa Ana College, the G in the CTAG is the guarantee. They know that if they follow this pathway and they complete the pathway, that there is a guaranteed admission at Chapman University. And I think that's a big relief for a lot of students.
All right, thank you. So again, the CTAG is specially designed for future elementary and special education teachers from Santa Ana College, our other partner, as well as our Santiago Canyon College, which is where you all are joining us from today. And the completion, again, of the CTAG pathway offers guaranteed admission into our Integrated Educational Studies major, which is our major that is designated for individuals that want to teach, take the teaching path. So why our Integrated Educational Studies major? Why Chapman? A part of, as a graduate of Chapman University with the bachelor's degree in this particular major, we have five different program learning outcomes that we um, kind of have as pillars of our program. The first is that our graduates are leaders and change agents, not only within their schools, but really within the community and beyond, within kind of our regions and our states and beyond. And that we see educators as agents of change. So, not just impacting what they do in the classroom, but that their impact kind of has this domino effect of change and beyond. We also are focused on being ethically responsible decision makers, really important part of being educators. And so, another important program learning outcome obviously is learner and scholar. We're a very strong program in kind of theory, background theory on education, what makes a good learner, what makes a good educator, how to support our learners, but very theoretically based so that students can use that theory and then put it into practice. So that learner and scholar is really important. And then I'll jump to facilitator and collaborator, and I'll go back to advocate for inclusive and supportive communities. The next one being facilitator and collaborator, really important part of education, as you know, as you're going through your program at SEC, realizing that teaching does not happen in isolation. It takes a group of integrated individuals to work together in schools and even outside schools, and teachers are a part of that network to support learners. And then finally, and I think I left this one for the end, I think this is one of our important ones, is an advocate for inclusive and supportive communities. So we really focus on diversity and inclusion at Chapman and being supportive of a diverse group of learners. As we know, California presents in our classrooms, and as our nation presents, and globally as well, and being as supportive of that diverse group of learners as possible. What are the strategies, what are the theories that we can use to support those students? We take a progressive approach, seeing school as kind of a function of democracy, as John Dewey proposes, and that you as future educators are part of that process. So a couple of key courses, which 101 and 103 are courses, we'll talk about this a little bit later, of articulated agreements with Chapman that you might be able to take at SAC before you even come to Chapman to kind of get those get those under your belt. And we also have offerings at Chapman, but through SEC, where we're teaching classes through SEC. So we'll talk about that a little bit later. But these core introductory courses are self and identity. So as it says, kind of really important to our program, seeing how you kind of this view of yourself. It's housed in this idea of culturally responsive pedagogy, that how do we look at ourselves? What is our kind of place in the world? Who are we as individuals? And what is our kind of complex identity? What is the different components that make up that identity? Then the next one, social construction of difference, that is housed at Chapman. So that is one that is required to be taken at Chapman. And that is just talking about how context plays a role in how we look at differences in individuals and society, and how context is a really important part of that. So it comes from very much a social cultural perspective and the work of Vygotsky and social cultural theory. The last one is philosophy of helping. So again, a very key kind of element of the IES program, looking at education as a helping profession, and part of many helping professions. We saw this really come to life, I think, in the past year and a half with COVID, teachers being on the front line, and people probably forgot what a helping profession it is, but that's kind of the focus of this particular course. So as it states here, finish these 3 courses in your first year and then apply to one of the emphases, and we'll talk about those, being special ed, and then other emphasis is language and literacy. And so we'll talk about this momentarily a little bit more. Some other continued common courses, exploring theories of learning. So just kind of talks about educational theories and learning, schools and society, how schools are very important pillars and community instruments within our societal norms. And then you can take one of the following. This talks about IS 205, talks about curriculum, kind of cross-disciplinary curriculum, so curriculum across different academic domains from science, English language arts, math, and an intersection of those. And then this is a fun one, IES 207, is the pursuit of happiness and knowledge, Walt Disney and Darwin. So really popular course, looks at the intersection of Walt Disney, which Chapman and many of our kind of Orange County colleges have that close relationship with Disney being in our, kind of in our back door there, but the intersection of Disney and Darwin, and just a fun way to look at it. And we're lucky enough to have that housed in our integrated educational studies department. And then we get into our upper division. So you can, I won't go through all these, but you can kind of take a look at these. You'll get these organization, ethics, and society. So kind of piggybacks on schools and society, right? But then we go a little bit broader and we look at how other organizations are part of society along with schools and kind of the ethical responsibility these organizations have. And then you can take two of the following. So you can see kind of the different options in terms of these other different courses. So I'll let you look at those briefly. All right, and so then I'll turn it over to Shannon, and she'll talk a little bit about kind of admissions and financial aid. And yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Kristen. I appreciate it. Hi, everyone. I am going to go over just a couple of couple quick slides in regards to where we're at as a university and some of the admission process. Many of you are probably familiar with Chapman. We're not that far away from Santiago Canyon's campus. I think what a lot of folks don't know about Chapman is we're actually one of the oldest institutions in the state of California. We've been around since 1861, have been on our current campus since 1954. So we have a rich history and a long history within Orange County and the city of Orange. Chapman is considered a medium-sized private comprehensive college. We have 7,600 undergraduate students. So it's kind of a place where I describe where you're not necessarily going to know everyone, but you'll definitely know a lot of familiar faces kind of day in and day out. That's a good size, I think, in that 7,000 range to be at. We're about 2,000 at the graduate level. Overall, for admission purposes, for transferring, it tends to be a little bit less cumbersome for most of our majors to enter Chapman as a transfer student than it does as a high school applicant. We have about a 58% admit rate for most of our transfers. Average GPA usually hovers between about a 3.3, 3.4. Typically in a fall entering class, we'll bring in around 1,700 new first-year students right out of high school and about another 400 transfer students. And then Chapman has a small mid-year cycle for spring admission where we usually bring in about 200 new students in the spring. Kristen, I don't know if I can flip the slides. I may need you to, sorry, thank you. A couple of other just quick highlights. I know we're here to talk about the CTAG program, but as a whole, Chapman doesn't have any sort of impacted majors. If for some reason you're looking at Chapman for other programs, most of our programs are completely open to transfer students. There are some programs that have lower admit rates than others. Those tend to fall more in our talent, creative and performing and visual arts types of programs. While we're a private school, that usually means there's a little bit of flexibility as to kind of how and when you transfer. We're obviously very big with this particular program on you maximizing your time at Santiago Canyon College. So even though we don't have a minimum unit count required to apply for admission as a transfer, students that are falling into the CTAG program are going to be coming in with one of the three main transfer options completed. Could be the IGETC, could be the CSU, or an associate's degree to transfer. they're going to be coming in either late sophomore, early part of their junior year. What that full transfer plan does for you, whether you're doing the IGETC, the CSU, or the ADT, is it automatically wipes out most of the general education at Chapman, which is why we want you to come in that way. So that when you get to Chapman, you're really minimizing what's left for you from a general education standpoint and really, really concentrating on what's ahead of you in your major with the CTAC program. Okay, ready for the next one. Sorry. Okay, I always say the two biggest obstacles, which I think that the CTAG program kind of blows out of the water in a good way, so to speak, to getting to a private college. One is just the articulation. What do I need to get in there? Is it drastically different than what I need to plan on for getting into maybe Cal State Fullerton, Cal State Long Beach, UC Irvine, any of our strong local public institutions that we have? Hopefully by allowing you to come in with one of those transfer patterns, a CSU and IGETC and ADT, that's going to open up the doors for you to apply into other colleges at the same time. We want to try and plan a seamless transition. So again, when you get to Chapman, you're really just kind of focusing in on your major and not having to take any more basic English and basic math and basic science and basic social science. The other side of the issue or obstacle, I always say with private institutions, is the financial aid piece. It's by far the thing that I think most students are hesitant and frankly very anxious about. Chapman's a private institution. We know we cost more than our UC and our Cal State counterparts. This can be really intimidating when you're looking at that yearly price tag, which we have right here on this slide, times it by 2 because you would be at Chapman for 2 years. Obviously, one of the benefits of the CTAG program is funding associated with students coming into Chapman. So our goal is to create a seamless pathway for you to get admitted and have your classes seamlessly come on over and count Chapman, and only leaves you with another 2 years ahead of you at Chapman. And in addition to that, create the funding piece where you could actually make Chapman a possibility. And your out of pocket expenses may not be great. They may not be anything at all. And so that funding piece is so important. When we were talking about launching the CTAG program, we have to have funding for it, or it just really will never take off. So just know that the financial aid side of things is kind of blended into the CTAG program. We talk a lot about it. We do want students to make sure they file the FAFSA form or your California DREAM Act paperwork. That's really, really crucial to do. And then as an institution, Chapman pulls in funding from the state that we're in, the federal government, and our own home institution. So we are going to be as aggressive as we possibly can when it comes to offering you a financial aid package that might make it a possibility for you to attend Chapman. Your admission offer at Chapman is always non-binding until you hear back from your financial aid offer. So again, that's really kind of blended into this program, and we have some specific funding directly geared towards the CTAG students. Okay, and let me kind of go over this one. So I got to put my glasses back on here. In terms of, again, meeting the admission requirements, we are going to take in the CSU, the IGETC, or an AAT degree. And then obviously wanting you to complete the prerequisite courses where you're at as well too. Again, that really makes an impact on when you get admitted into Chapman, minimizing what's ahead of you, if anything, in general education, and then allowing you to come in with some base level of education courses already done. The goal here is to get you in and out of Chapman in another 2 years once you make that Chapman move over to us. Making sure that you're going to apply for admission on time. I'm going to talk more about the fall timeline real quick here than the spring. We have some opportunities to potentially take in students mid-year for spring, but right now I think most of our emphasis is focused in on the next fall class coming in, which would be fall of 2022. Chapman utilizes the common application for admission, as do most private institutions. The common application for fall of 2022 will open up next month, November 15th of 2021 is when the common application opens, and then it's due February 15th of 2022. So once it opens, you have a 3-month timeline to get everything submitted by February 15th of 2022. And then if you get admitted, you have until the 1st of June to make what we call your enrollment deposit decision commitment. And again, making sure you're filing your FAFSA by March 2nd of 2022, or your California Dream Act paperwork by March 2nd of 2022. And then that's going to cover you or help cover you financially for that 2022-2023 school year. And that's it. Thank you. I think, Kristen, you popped back in here, I think.
Okay, great. And thank you, Shannon. Thanks for
Sure.
doing that. And Veronica, if you're available and want to speak to this, so in the January term that you all have, 2022, which corresponds with ours, Philosophy of Helping, which this is the course number, CNSL-152, will be offered during the winter session at SCC. So if I go back, oops, sorry, I'm not always great with the, so if you remember, if you go back to these core introductory courses, that is one that you can go ahead and take. So that would get that IES 103 out of the way. The other one that we offer, and Veronica, maybe you can speak to this, is self and identity. And I think we have that articulated with you, if you don't mind sharing or reiterating that course number for the students.
You know what, let me look that up. I'm not too sure what course number that is here at SEC. So I'll look that up and I'll put it in the chat box.
That would be great.
For the Counseling 152, it is going to be offered during intersession.
That would be great. Yes. So that one, those two, I believe, again, so you can do both of those at SEC. So as Shannon was saying, getting as much done at SEC as possible in terms of your general ed, and then these core introductory courses. Again, 102 is something, a social construction of difference is something we do just offer right now at Chapman. Let me see if there's anything else. Shannon, was there anything that you wanted to add here? Or should I just talk to I think you kind of went through these deadlines, but if you want to just.
Yeah, I think real quick, thank you, Kristen, real quick and there's information in here about the spring 22 cycle, but I think probably most of us here and most of you that are listening are looking at more fall of 2022. Cynthia just asked a great question and I put in some comments in the chat. One of the things that you're going to be doing is when you meet with your counselor at Santiago Canyon College, your counselor is going to do kind of an introduction over to both you and I at the same time. And then I usually will conduct an appointment with you, just kind of a pre-screening appointment. It's not an interview or anything like that. It's just to kind of go over your specific transcripts, talk to you a little bit about the timeline and the financial aid process. At that point, we create a form and a file for you as a prospective student in our system here at Chapman. So that way, when your application comes in, we know that you're part of the CTAG program. So there's not an actual separate application process that you would go through for that. That works really well with this last cohort that we brought in, where you start your meeting at Santiago Canyon, they do the introduction to us, and then we take it from there, get you into our system so you're in our communication flow and get updated announcements about things that are going on over in the Atala College of Educational Studies, application timeline, reminders, those types of things as well too. I'm going to backtrack real quick on that FAFSA and California Dream Act application. If you're looking at fall of 2022, you want to make sure you're doing your 2022-2023 FAFSA California Dream Act paperwork, and that will cover you for fall of 22 all the way through the end of spring of 2023. It always seems weird, I know, to do that process when you don't know where you're going to end up yet in the fall of 2022. the reason you do it by the deadline, and you'll put all of your colleges on there that you're thinking applying to, not just Chapman, is that when you get admitted, we can then pull that financial aid information down very quickly without having to wait on you to do the FAFSA form or the DREAM Act paperwork, and then get that financial aid offer out to you, which again, for most of our students, they're going to need to see that before being able to make a commitment decision either way to attend Chapman.
Great. Thank you, Shannon. And I'll just add one more thing, and then I think we'll open it up for questions. Feel free to visit this website if you have any questions or need any more information. I know Shannon will probably enter in her information in the chat, and I can as well. I think I didn't know, I don't think it was on the slides, but just again, saying that this is for elementary focus. So right now we're just focusing on, in terms of the CTAG, it's the elementary school interest. And the two different kind of emphasis areas, once you get, I don't want to overwhelm you with decisions, but once you get into our major, you can choose an emphasis or kind of a minor area, which either would be language and literacy or disability studies. Disability studies is usually for people that want to continue on with teaching again, but maybe work in a special education classroom. They don't have to, but we'd get a lot of interest in that, with that minor and that being our major. And then our other language and literacy is just a great focus area for those students that want to teach elementary education. So those would kind of be the two minors with that major, the two pathways in that. And again, it's the elementary focus. So, but again, I'll put my information in the chat as well. If you have questions kind of about the program and just want to chat and learn a bit more about it in detail and what is kind of unique about it, I'd be glad to speak to you. And I know Shannon would support you in terms of the financial aid and admissions process. But we'll open it up to questions, and you can put them in the chat or you can share out verbally as well.
I had a quick question. I don't know if someone already said this, but I was wondering if it is more suggested that you transfer in the fall versus the spring, or if it's kind of like the same thing.
It's a good question. Right now, what's holding us up for this spring, at least spring of 2022, and I can't say that this is going to be the same case for future spring terms, so don't necessarily panic on that. This current spring 2022, we don't have our funding piece because we actually brought in more students for fall of 21 than we had expected. It was a good problem to have, but because we over enrolled for fall of 2021, we don't have the funding piece for mid-year spring this spring. That again, not to say that we're not going to have that in the future. This program is open technically for spring and fall admission, but right now, because of the funding piece, the next best time to enter would be fall of 2022 or beyond.
Sorry, I have a question. Is there a specific major that AA that you would like us to have in order to transfer, or any AA is applicable to transfer?
That is a great question. Veronica, I might defer to you on this. I do not think so, but my only thought would be, again, taking those two courses, if you can, that I mentioned at Santiago Canyon. And so are those already a part of maybe early childhood major that you have there, or elementary education? I'm not sure exactly what it's the title of it. If that helps that. Veronica, is there anything else in terms of that?
Yeah, no, I'm not sure. I know that the other 7 students that did transfer there, they did have majors, different AA degrees. So it wasn't a particular specific AA that they were required to have.
Yeah, I agree. I believe, at least as the agreement stands now, there isn't a particular associate's degree to transfer that you absolutely need to have. a good majority of the students had the CSU or IGETC full certification, not necessarily the associate's degree. So I think there's some flexibility in what associate's degree you're going to go after.
Any other questions? Either, again, feel free to just say it or put it in the chat.
I have another quick question. I heard from previous students that they had received like full ride scholarships. And so I was wondering if those are still available like for future cohorts. And then also if the scholarship is just for like strictly academics or if it also takes into account like jobs or like volunteer experience.
Yeah, that's a good question. So this fall 21 class was our first cohort from both Santiago Canyon and Santa Ana coming in. And we were actually able to fully fund, we were only supposed to do 10 students. And I think at the end of the day, we brought in 13, which is why we don't have a spring 22 cohort. We were able to fully fund. And what that means for Chapman is we covered the mandatory, what we covered was the tuition for each year. And then the mandatory fees that are embedded in Chapman's campus for full-time students. So the students that are in the CTAG program have the ability, if they want to take out a loan for any books, course materials, living expenses, those types of things, but their tuition and mandatory fees have been covered for the next 2 years. They're 2 years at Chapman, which was obviously really exciting for us. We were able to do more than we thought we were going to. We are working on having that type of funding for the future cohorts as well. We still want students, and we still had this cohort to make sure that they did their FAFSA or their California DREAM Act paperwork. So we do want to make sure that that is still filed. When we say full scholarship, and I'm glad you kind of phrased it that way, because it's technically a combination of a couple of different programs that we have that created the ability for them to get their tuition and mandatory fees waived. So it wasn't one full scholarship that they got of one award. It was a combination of some scholarship and grant money that we pieced together for the CTAG students so that they wouldn't be incurring any expenses towards tuition and mandatory fees. It allows them to save money for graduate school because it doesn't cover them for a graduate level program. So we are hoping to have that same type of level of funding in the future, starting with that fall 22 cohort and beyond. But again, still wanting to make sure you file the necessary paperwork for financial aid, because that enables us to figure out how much we have to contribute per student and where we're going to pull in that money from or that funding from.
Other questions, you can always email them to me and I'll make sure I give them to either Shannon or Kristen to make sure that they answer all of your questions.
To be in the CTAG program, do you have to enroll full-time as a person with a disability? I was wondering if it's possible to enroll part-time and still be in the CTAG program.
Great question. Really good question. I was going to say, and we kind of learned obviously a lot from this first cohort group coming in. One of the things that we learned is that obviously, because Chapman's a private school, the students were coming in, they don't all necessarily have 60 units all at the same time coming in. And so there are some students having to take more classes this fall than others. All of the students technically in this program are required to be at a minimum of 12 units each semester. Obviously, if a student has a documented disability or something that's going to require them to fall down below 12 units, we'd have to look into that, because that impacts a couple of things. It can impact the timeline that we have, because again, the goal here is to ideally try to get you out in 2 years. Can also impact the funding piece as well. So it's a really good question. I don't have a direct answer of a yes or no. That would definitely be something that we would want to continue to talk to you a little bit more about, get a better idea of kind of what your normal course load is, that you're used to doing. And could we mimic something like that potentially at Chapman or not? Because again, the funding piece that we secured is really just for 2 years. So for students that are needing to potentially take longer in the program, that could be a possibility, but it could impact the funding piece. And obviously that's something we'd want to make sure we noodle around before you get into anything like that.
You guys have any more questions? If not, thank you so much for giving us this information session, very informative, and hopefully, again, if you guys have any questions, you guys can email them to me and I'll make sure that Chapman University gets all of the questions you guys have. Thank you guys for coming.
Thanks so
Thank
much.
you, Dulce. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Shannon.
Thank you. Thank you.